Okay, well, hi everyone. I'm pleased to welcome Amy Branger to the Planners on Purpose podcast. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Not a problem. We're really great to have you. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. And I already gave my listeners the skinny on you.
Okay, good.
So all of the exciting roles and positions that you've had over the years, I've told them about that. And I also told them that you've had some pretty wild dreams. And not only have you had these wild dreams, you've achieved them. So I just can't wait to hear about those wild dreams and what you've achieved. Do you care to tell us? I know I'm digging into the good stuff right away, but
Yeah. I'll give you a little an example of a dream. So about around 2012 was like the last time I worked for like a salary for an employer. That's around when I went out on my own, and um, I was looking for a new job, and I was still in my job. But I had given like a few months notice, so I was actively looking for something, and I had narrowed it down to three things that I wanted to have somewhere where the work was really flexible. I could work from anywhere and I made more money. And actually, I didn't care what the work was at all, as long as I was growing and learning and I was good at it. And I would tell every single person I met that, and they were like, Amy, that's what everybody wants. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to get it. And I did, within a couple of months, I had a long-term contract and I was in that for a couple of years. And then I just started consulting on my own. I mean, I totally got it. And because I was very specific about what I was looking for.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think the listeners on this podcast are event planners, and I'm pretty sure we have aspiring entrepreneurs or planners that are just working too hard. So it's just so good to see that you would be able to do that, to do just that. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said also that you had some more big dreams that you wanted to accomplish now that you've landed those, and what are some of the other things that you want to accomplish now?
So my really big dream right now is to move to Amsterdam and to live there for, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, maybe forever, but 5 to 10 years. And I'm planning to do that in the fall of 2021. So it's really coming up fast. And it scares me a little to say it out loud even, but I'm doing it.
If you say it out loud, you're claiming it. So
check back with me in November 2021, and we'll be doing this podcast from Amsterdam.
That would be awesome. Amsterdam's really exciting, and I just wish you all the best in accomplishing that, putting your dreams out there and going for it. From what you've done so far, I know that you'll definitely reach your goal for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to dig in a little bit into what you've done, and I know you have a lot of valuable information to share for event planners. And so the first question I really have for you are just, some event planners are in certain positions where they have to really manage upward, whether it's managing up to their clients, managing up to their leaders, or even maybe the CEO suite within their organizations. And I know you've done a lot of great work as an executive coach. Would love to be able to hear about what you feel are some great strategies to manage upwards for event planners. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I always, when I coach my executives, one of the things I always say is that when you're managing up, the most important thing is to anticipate what that person is afraid of. What are they worried about? What do they think they have a blind spot? Where do they think they don't have all the information, or where are they not as skilled as you are? Or just being able to identify what their fears are. And if you can find out what they're afraid of, and you can make sure that you are constantly propping them up in that area and making sure that they are fully briefed and that they are confident that you're taking care of things, that will just go a really, really long way to, over time, allowing you to have a good relationship there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it's so true. Establishing that trust with those leaders and really following through on what you say you're going to follow through on really just helps them to take you more seriously, or to take any suggestion that you may have moving forward. So that's a really good point. And you're right. They are afraid of there is something that they're afraid of. Yeah, like losing control or not knowing, right, what you're doing. So to help them in that and show up for them is amazing. So that's, thank you. So there's tons of change management in event planning. As you know, you've done a lot in that area. So in your expert opinion, what are the best ways to deal with that change?
So I have a sort of a four-part system for dealing with change, and it's like 4 steps, and I feel like you have to work through all the steps. And the first one is acceptance. You know, you have to accept that whatever this change is, it happened. You have to strip away the stories that you made up about why it happened and just accept that it happened.
Mhm.
And at the same time, you want to feel your feelings about it. You don't want to just brush them away. You want to feel your feelings, but you don't want to wallow. You want to accept it, feel it, accept it, and move on.
Mhm.
The second thing is empowerment. Come up with a new story about what happened that is more empowering, that allows you to have some agency in the matter. So if, for example, COVID,
Mhm.
let's say, you know, you're an
Yeah.
airline and COVID, is when's your airline.
Mhm.
Now you want to think about, well, what can we do? How can we make how can we use this to innovate? How can we use this as oh, now our planes are down. We can maintain them all at once and do some big overhauls. What can we do to make it so that this is a good thing?
Right. Yeah.
The second thing is to learn the lessons. So find out the lessons that, come through this change, really think a lot about them. And in this lesson area, I also include having a lot of gratitude for what you do have and what
Mhm.
might be good about the change.
Mhm.
And then the third thing is to explore, to take this opportunity to see what other endings you can write. Are there any new opportunities that, like how you created a new story in step 2, empowerment? How can you move that forward? What are some new ways that you can work? So again, it's acceptance, empowerment, learn the lessons, and explore. And some of those steps take longer than others, and I like lead individuals and organizations through that 4-step system.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, with COVID for sure, we have had to accept that. And I feel like it took some people longer than others.
Yeah, but the
Accept
quicker
it.
that you can, the more you can move forward faster.
Right. And be empowered and create that new story or that innovation that you were talking about, to just kind of move forward. So I love that. So you heard it here. If you're looking to manage change, Amy is saying you need to accept it first, accept what your client is giving you. And you know what? Be empowered in it, come up with that new story, learn your lessons from that, and continue to explore. So thanks for that. So we also deal with change in organizations, right? Just to ensure that the proposed change will be accepted. I just want to know what ways can event planners ensure that the change is accepted and implemented at all levels of the organization? Because sometimes change just has to happen
Yep.
and you're
This is
working.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is super important. When the most important thing when you're trying to lead organizations through change is communication.
Hmm.
The more people that feel that they're a part of this process and that they know what is happening, the better you'll be able to socialize the change. For example, it's really, really important. Like a lot of times, a lot of the change happens sort of at the executive level or
Yes.
maybe in a department.
Hmm.
It's really, really important to include all people from all levels of the organization, like maybe form some work groups, because there are people that are in there doing the jobs. They might have really good information about the change, but regardless whether they do or don't, if they're not consulted on it at all and it's just posed on them, then it's like, well, nobody asked my opinion, and you really want people to feel like their opinions are valuable, and you want to be really, really transparent about how decisions are made. So communicate regularly, and you cannot over communicate. That's the most important thing.
Right. Yeah. And I think sometimes we forget that too.
Yeah,
Um, Easy when you're planning an event to over communicate to attendees, but when it
right.
comes to change in organization, sometimes we forget you have to keep educating, you have to keep communicating with all different levels of those stakeholders. So, very good point. So we were talking a little bit about COVID-19 before and how that was something that was huge and everyone had to really deal with it, accept it, and be empowered and figure out their next steps. So what are some tools that you feel for event planners would, in this time of sudden change, what can you offer them during this time in COVID, in this virus and the world and what it's working with right now? What can you offer them?
Yeah, so COVID, I mean, there's so many obstacles with that, and everybody's dealing with them, and everybody's dealing with different ones. Where people are losing their jobs, and people are getting sick, and people like, it seems petty, but people like my daughter who are a senior in high school, they're really bummed about their senior year. So there's lots of layers where people are experiencing this. So I go back to the 4 steps, and the most important step, which is accepting it.
Mhm.
So what I would say to planners is the more they try to lament about how they used to do it or the way wish they were doing it the way it was before, instead of spending all that time and energy, why don't they spend that time and energy in innovating about how we can move these events online? Like the energy that you're spending is taking away from the energy that you can innovate. So just
Sure.
accept the change.
Yeah. Put your energy in the right place and
Yes.
fuel you and keep you going. So it doesn't change as far
Yeah.
as the process, right? You're
No.
still going to go through that same
Yeah.
process no matter what situation might come
No
your way.
matter how big or small the change is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So switching gears a little bit, and we were talking about dreams before, I just want to hear a little bit more about how you guide women to dream bigger dreams than they've ever had before and
Yeah.
achieve them. What are you doing right now to help?
So I'm really excited about. So I with a partner, in addition to my executive coaching, I run a business called Perfect Avocado Retreats.
I
And
love that name, by the way.
thank
Perfect.
you. We do too.
It's
Thank you.
like perfect.
Yeah. So we really target like middle-aged women in our retreats and our classes, and most of those women are going through big changes, but a lot of them are like looking at a second half of their life and thinking sort of what now? And we want to help them answer that question. So one of the things we do is on our 3-day retreat, which is like our big, our like sort of landmark event, is we have 3 days, and the whole first day we spend talking about and helping you identify the story that's been running your life. Now, most people don't even understand what that means when I say that, but there is a story that has been running your life and you don't even know what it is. It
Wow.
could be, I'm bad with money. It could be, I'm sensitive. There's many, many things. It could be, or I'm shy or whatever, but there was a story that you created when you were a little kid and it has been running your life. So the first day we unpack that story and come up with tools to use the next time we hear ourselves telling that story.
Okay.
Then with that story no longer in the driver's seat, we spend the whole next day really dreaming big. And most people really have been dreaming small their whole lives. And it takes a whole day to get people from the small dreams to the big dreams. And we have a lot of exercises where we do that. And then the thing that I think really sets us apart is that a lot of times you'll go to a seminar or a retreat or a conference and you'll come home and for like a couple days or weeks, you're really pumped about it, right?
Yeah.
And then it sort of fades away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we spend the whole 3rd day of the retreat doing is coming up with a plan for you to achieve those dreams.
It's amazing.
And that's really cool. So that's the big 3-day event. And then just to give people a taste of what that's like, we also offer a 1-day retreat. And the 1-day retreat is basically just that 2nd day. So you don't get the story of your life unpacking it, you don't get the plan, but
Mhm.
you really get a whole day of dreaming big.
That's amazing. I mean, and everyone needs that time to just,
Hey, you have to
go
give it to
somewhere.
yourself.
Yes, relax and focus on you, focus on what your dreams are, what your big questions are about your life, and really find a way to guide yourself to that next step. So that's amazing. So what is the website for Perfect Avocado?
It's perfectavocadoretreats.com.
Great. So if you're interested in that, I just suggest everyone head over to that website and just take advantage of either a 3-day retreat. I did see, Amy, that you did virtual retreats as well.
Yeah, I'll talk about that later too,
Okay.
because there's a really fun virtual retreat as well if you're not local to me.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so lots of fun stuff happening over there. So definitely go to perfectavocado.com. So
Perfect Avocado Retreats.
retreats, sorry, .com.
Okay.
So wanted to switch gears a little bit again before we go back to talk a little bit more about those fun options that you have about a book club that I currently have at Planners on Purpose. We do a book club once every other month or so. We're digging deep into a book and we're talking a little bit about just the book and how it can apply to our lives and apply to event planning. We currently just got done reading a book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Wonderful book about just building healthy habits, one small step at a time. And I know you've done a lot of work in this area with the people and organizations you work with. I wanted to know from you, what's one habit first that you were hoping to get rid of?
Okay, so that was an easy one for me. Well, first of all, thanks for recommending the book because it's been something I've wanted to read for a while, so I definitely added it to my Goodreads list. So one habit that I really like to get rid of is the way I talk about my body. So I have been dealing with chronic illness for years, and I have this story, like I told you about early. It's not true. It's a story I made up at some point that I can't depend on my body. And when I really think about it, this body created a human being. It ran marathons, and that story is not true. And it's been battling chronic illness. That story is not true. And so the more I tell it, the more true it becomes. So the one habit that I would really like to break is I'd like to start talking about my body as something I can depend on.
Right. Wow. That's great. That's wonderful. And there's just so many things, just changing the perception, right, of how you think about yourself or the habits that you would like to break. Because a bad habit can train into a better habit, you know.
Right.
So that's wonderful. So I know you have a lot of really good things under your belt as far as habits. So I'd love to hear from you any tips that you have on building healthy habits.
Yeah, so I don't think this is going to be revolutionary, but I think the most important thing for me, for my day, is to have a morning routine. And your morning routine can be whatever works for you, but it should be between 5 minutes and an hour, maybe, that of time that you set aside in the morning before you get on your phone, before you read the newspaper, before you interact with your kids or your work, where you get to set your intentions for the day. And that will give you so much better control of your day. I can give you a quick example. My morning routine is I have a really comfortable chair with a table in this corner of my bedroom.
Oh, I want that.
I meditate for 5 to 15 minutes, depending how much time I have. I read 10 to 15 minutes of nonfiction. Right now, I'm reading a bunch of different anti-racist readings just to try to educate myself. I do 10 or 15 minutes of journaling. And I do 10 or 15 minutes of Dutch lessons on my phone.
Wow.
And so that's my whole morning routine. And if I can do that, I feel like I've taken care of myself. Now that can be from 40 to 90 minutes. I have a lot more control over my schedule because I work for myself, and I have a teenager who mostly can take care of herself. But if I can just set aside minimum of 40 minutes a day to do those things, my day is completely different. And I notice.
Yeah, I think same here. I have a morning routine, but unlike you, I have little ones.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's, it comes out good where I get to my routine, and then sometimes I just have a little one that is excited to start the day. So, so I have to move that to a different time. But yes, the importance of a morning routine is so crucial to get that time to get everything correct with your being and how you want to move through your day. And you're a big proponent of work smarter, not harder. So tell us more about what you found to work in your experience about how one can work smarter and not harder.
Yeah, so that's my website tagline. I love that. So what I do when I'm coaching executives is I help them identify their strengths. And I have several tools that I use to help them identify their strengths. And then I talk to them a little bit. I'll talk to your listeners a little bit. Even some of them may know about this. There's a thing called fixed and growth mindset. And I'll just do a quick little description of that. These are basically psychological terms that have been around for, I don't know, 40, 50 years. A fixed mindset means that you believe you were born with certain traits and you're good at some things and you're not good at other things, and that's how it is. The growth mindset is you think that with practice you could get good at anything. Now, how these play out in the world is that if you're good in math, say you've been good in math your whole life, and you go to college and study math, and you have a fixed mindset. Now you're in college with everybody who is good at math, right? And you go and you take your first test and you get a B. You have a fixed mindset, you're running to the office to change your major because you realize I'm actually not good at math when it comes to all the people that are really good at it. If you have a growth mindset, what you think is, oh, the stakes are higher here, the competition is higher, I have to work harder. So I set that up to tell you that the thing about strengths that psychiatrists have and psychologists have researched and found out that even people who have a growth mindset generally, they have a fixed mindset about their strengths. They do not think that they can improve their strengths, so they work on their weaknesses. But actually, you are much more successful if you try to improve your strengths than if you try to improve your weaknesses. So what I do with these executives is I really help them to identify their strengths and hire to their weaknesses. They don't have to learn how to do those things. They can hire people to do it, and then they need to let them do it. Communicate what the big picture is, what the goals are, and then let them do it. And you were asking earlier about the virtual retreat. I use some of these tools in a virtual retreat that we do for Perfect Avocado. We have another one coming up in a couple of weeks. And that's where we help you determine what your superpowers are and how to use them. And it's our most fun offering. People love it.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, and it is so true. And I know I've talked about this on the podcast and I wrote about it as well. It's, you know, find a way to either delegate to your weakness, like you said, hire for your weakness. It really helps. And it's happened to me before. I've had someone on my team that just really loves techie things. And she just wanted she just wanted, like, Naomi, I want to do this for you. I'm like, go ahead, go for it, do it. It was like the perfect thing. So I agree, you know, I agree with the fixed and growth mindset and really hiring around or, you know, delegating around your weaknesses. It really just helps relieve the stress.
Yeah, and you just can, if you're playing to your strengths, you're going to go much further.
Exactly. So we have one thing in common, something in common. Both love to mentor and coach new women in the industry. What do you feel is the biggest struggle for women in leadership right now?
One of the things I think is the biggest struggle is, and I think it is changing, but not really fast enough, is all the other stuff that women have to do. You know, the house stuff, the parenting stuff, the school stuff. And one of the things that I think is really important if you're a female leader, a woman leader, is to model good behavior. And by model good behavior, I mean, go to your kids' play in the middle of the day, go to their soccer practice, leave at 5 o'clock if you have to pick them up for daycare. Make that normal, make that okay, because you are the one in a senior position. You're the one who can negotiate those things. You're the one who has the privilege to do those things. And if you are doing it, you're modeling good behavior, and then you encourage your staff to do it. They know they can do it if they see you do it.
That's so good. So good. You know, if you want to be that mom, then do it. Model that behavior.
And whatever it is, if you're leaving, even if you're not a mom, take all your vacations. Don't answer your phone on vacation, and don't email your staff when they're on vacation. You know, really model good behavior around taking care of yourself.
Right. And I think it goes to even just setting good boundaries for yourself too. I know we've talked about that too on here. It's just setting good boundaries and making sure that you're living that out to the fullest. So for sure. Great. So how can a woman best leverage their network and get in front of the right people? as a woman. It's a little tough,
It's a little tough. It is. It is. So first I want to say, to build your network, and building your network is more than racking up your LinkedIn connections, although that's really important. It requires communicating with people regularly, scheduling coffee or Zooms, belonging to organizations, and participating in those.
Mhm.
And one thing I always tell people, I do a lot of informational interviews because I really care about particularly helping young women, succeed. So people are always sending me someone that wants to talk to me about whatever, and I'm always happy to do it. And at the end of the informational interview, the thing I always say to them is to go to my LinkedIn, and I've like 700 and something, look at every single one and tell me who you want to meet. And I say literally carve out a few hours to do this. The thing is, I think women are basically afraid to use networking to get a job. And basically, that's how men have been doing it all along. And yet somehow women think we need to do it like anonymously. And
Right.
that's not how anything works.
Yeah, I mean, you are so right. And I don't know what it is. It's really getting over. It's a fear, I think.
Fear, yes. It's also like they want to kind of do it on their own. Well, no one does it on their own. So you're just handicapping yourself when you do that.
Right. Everybody has connections and they use those connections to get to the next point. So go ahead and be empowered to do that. Awesome.
Yes.
So now I'm getting to some questions that I absolutely want to really know. So I'm going to be just like a little child here, just excited to hear about it. But I know you've been working, or you had worked on the Clinton Gore campaign, and I would love to hear some of your proudest moments and what were some of your biggest struggles. So I know my listeners would love to hear about your experiences with that campaign.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to your listeners about it because they, more than any others, completely could understand this better than anybody. So what I did was I did advance for the Clinton Gore campaign. So what that means is every 3 to 5 to 7 days, you get picked up, you're put into a new city, you're on a new team, the teams don't travel together, you're on a new team, and you have to create an event that's going to be on national television, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of my proudest accomplishments is having, is being on those teams, because they worked so well. I mean, if you've ever been on teams, you know that they're mostly so dysfunctional. But the thing about those teams is, first of all, we were all working towards the same goal. So that's one thing I always tell people: if you're trying, make sure the team has a very clearly defined goal, because we were all working to get Bill Clinton and Al Gore elected. We knew we had one goal. That's what we were doing. The other thing is we had clearly defined roles. Everybody, somebody was the press person, somebody was the site person, somebody was the motorcade person, whatever it was. You landed in that town, you knew what your job is. You don't have to deal with anybody else. You go in and you do your job, and everyone stayed in their lane. And that is a testament to the people they had around them, I think. Struggles is actually, it's almost the same thing. Like every 3 to 5 to 7 days, you're in a new city. You don't know anybody. Maybe there's some local Democrats or a local campaign. Don't know the people you're working with because it's a new team. And in addition to the team from the campaign, there's a team from the Secret Service and there's a team from White House Communications. So you're actually working, in these small teams within a bigger team. And you have an event that's going to be on national television in a couple of days. And you have no control at all. Headquarters can change everything 24 hours before the event, and you have to literally create something new. And I think that's where I learned how to just accept change and move on.
Right. Just keep on your feet. Just, expect it. Keep going.
You're not going to argue with headquarters. You're like a peon down here. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And I'm sure that happened pretty much on an everyday basis.
All the time. All the time. I mean, I'll give a little anecdote for your people because I think they would appreciate it. So we might land and we're told there's going to be like on a Monday, and on Thursday there's going to be an education event. That's all we know. So we go look at a Head Start, we go look at a Votech school, we go look at a community college, because we don't know what kind of education they're talking about, right?
Right.
So then we get a call on Tuesday, and so we have to meet with all those people. We have to tell them the president or vice president might be coming through, but might not, so don't get too excited. That's a lot of, delicate communications. Then let's say Tuesday they call us and say, no, it's going to be a jobs event. And we say, okay, so maybe we could still use the Votech school. Maybe we could still use the community college, and then let's see if we can find a factory. So it's like that's what the job is like. You're just constantly having to change and think on your feet, and
Oh, goodness.
just the kind of thing that your listeners can really relate to.
And I'm pretty sure it's just times 100, right?
1,000, yeah.
And I love that you brought up stay in your lane.
Yes.
Because I think when you're dealing with something that high profile, you have no choice but to just stay in your
Just
lane.
put your blinders on and do your job.
Because everyone that is hired, I'm pretty sure, is absolutely 1,000% capable of doing what they do.
Right.
So, yes.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. So, you're doing all of this change management on an everyday basis, and I'm pretty sure there's lots of stress. Even though you've kind of accepted it and you're moving, it is a pressure that comes with that. So how did you take care of yourself during the time, and what suggestions do you have for planners that manage high touch, high volume? They need to keep their well-being strong. What are some suggestions?
I totally understand, because when you're working on a campaign, it's just easy to eat all the donuts and pizza and all the stuff that just appears in a campaign office.
Exactly.
But that's the number. I think you really have to manage your diet. And if that means you pack a bunch of power bars or protein bars in your purse, or a powdered shake that you can just mix with any milk or water, you need to keep protein in you and keep your energy up. And the number one thing I say, do not rely on sugar and caffeine to get you through, because that is a short-term fix. And if you're an events person, you're going from event to event to event to event. You don't have downtime. So
you're going to crash.
You can't rely on that short-term fix.
Yes. 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 I mean, yeah. You just are bound to crash. You have to stay at the top of your game all of the time. So that's wonderful. And I think that goes for anything, especially if you're managing events and you're on site, don't make yourself be at the mercy of, like you said, whatever shows up. So make sure you are taking care of yourself.
Make sure you plan what you're going to eat.
Absolutely. So what would you say your biggest accomplishment is in planning events? Can you talk, what are some of your biggest accomplishments you have?
So this is going to be surprising, since I did all this work, for a president and vice president, but that's not my biggest accomplishment in events, I don't think. I would say my biggest accomplishment is the Avon Breast Cancer 3-Day. I was doing some contracting work for the company that produced both the Avon Breast Cancer 3-Day and the AIDS rides.
Okay.
And so then they hired me. I was living in Boston, but they hired me to move to DC and create a new event there. So I would be a logistics director for a brand new event. And most of the time, every time when they hired someone for a new city to create a new event, they hired them 1 year out, like to have 1 year to create the event. But in my case, for a number of reasons, it was 6 months out and they had not hired a logistics director.
Wow.
So I went down there and I created this huge event in 6 months that no one had ever done. Everybody else had done it in twice that time. That is like 100% my biggest accomplishment.
Wow. That is so amazing. And what are the participants? What is the number of participants?
Thousands, 10, 7,000, 8,000.
Wow. That's amazing. And in 6 months, like half the time.
And we have to move them in the 3-day, it's a 3-day event. People walk 20 miles each day. And so we have to move a mobile city every night for them to stay in and camp in, and showers and food trucks. And it's a lot.
So tell us about how you motivate. How do you motivate? I mean, you had a team and you were doing the advancement for Gore, then you have this project that you're doing for the Avon Breast Cancer 3-Day. I'm pretty sure you were in a position where you had to motivate your team and keep them going, but then also make sure that they're balancing themselves out. Tell us how you were able to do that.
So I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier, that you have to model, as the leader, you have to be the model. So you need to take up slack when people need to do stuff for their kids or the rest of their life, and you need to encourage people to take up slack for you. And you have to be sure you take your vacation days and don't send anybody emails and don't reply to emails. And you have to not email your staff when they're on vacations. a lot, you know, you really have to be intentional about taking time for yourself. And if you think about it, if you can't even think about taking time for yourself, think about it as modeling that behavior for the people under you. And
Mhm.
then the other thing, it goes back to the morning routine. I mean, if you can set an intention every day for how you want your day to be, that really sets the tone.
Right. So even just making sure your teams are doing what they need to do in the morning somehow
Yes.
help them with that.
Yes.
That's awesome. So I know before you talked about that you had a couple of apps on your phone that were able to help you. What apps do you suggest for productivity, work-life balance? What's on your phone right now that you can share that might help others?
Well, it's so funny. When I was preparing for this, I was doing it in the car and I was talking into my phone, so that I could later on go and sort of figure out how, you know. And my daughter answered this question for me and
Oh,
said that I use alarms on my phone because it drives her crazy. I use alarms on I mean, alarm goes out on my phone 100 times a day. If I
mm,
have to take a pill, if I have to make a phone call, if I have to do whatever, I set an alarm on my phone. That's one line of defense. The other line of defense is that I schedule everything. If
mm,
I knew I was going to spend a couple hours preparing for this interview, I scheduled that on my calendar. If I have to pick my daughter up somewhere, I schedule that on my calendar. Do not block the time on your calendar. Other stuff will creep in.
yeah, absolutely. That's like the gym.
Yeah, put the gym on your calendar. Like I just had shoulder surgery. I have to do physical therapy. I have the alarm every 2 hours, and I have 15 minutes blocked off on my calendar every 2 hours to do the exercises.
Exactly. And I feel like sometimes event planners, we know how to plan the heck out of a meeting, right? And or an event. But then we don't do that in our personal lives.
Yes.
It's like, we take
Yes.
care of everyone else, but then you just kind of let fall to the wayside. But that's a really great thing to help everyone. So thank you. So we're wrapping up, and I just wanted to ask you, what is your top 3 words of advice for other leaders in the industry about leading others and balancing it all? So,
Well, I took you very serious, very literally, and I came up with 3 words.
okay.
And then I have an offer for your listeners. So the first
Okay.
word is possibility. Like I feel like I always live in possibility and what is possible, not what is real right now.
Mhm.
Second thing is slow down, you know, part of that morning routine, you know, slow way down. And the third one is perfect avocado. I know that's 2 words, but I really like it. And I wanted to offer your listeners the opportunity to schedule a free consultation with me. I'll do a free 1 hour coaching with, if you want to bring me some kind of change that you're currently struggling with, I will help give you some strategies to get through that change. And I'll do it for free and see if you want to work with me. So you can just email me at, I think you'll probably put it in the show notes, right? But it's either
Absolutely.
amybranger.com or Amy at Perfect Avocado Retreats. And those are also my 2 websites, amybranger.com, perfectavocadoretreats.com.
Great. Well, thank you, Amy. This has been an awesome experience, just talking to you, hearing about your experience, and just getting to know you a little bit better. I really appreciate our time together and appreciate you just sharing your wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for being on
I
this.
really appreciate it, and I hope I could help some of your listeners.
You have. I'm pretty sure you have. Thank you.